Start the YouTube and the Facebook and the Twitter. And there we are, David Thomas. Good evening, lunatics. It is March 29th, and I'm by myself right now. Larry's on the way. He texted me, said he had just got home, so I'm sure he'll be fighting with his computer and his microphone for a little while. So I will do my best to keep you entertained and informed until he gets there. Man, we got Europe checking in on TikTok, which is fascinating to me. Good evening from the UK. A bunch of Scania truck drivers. Do y'all in Europe? Do y'all have like, you know, we have the Peterbilt Kenworth people, we have the Freightliner people, we have the Volvo people. Like, do y'all have the clubs and the cults? I guess you could say of who drives what truck, because you're completely judged in America based on what kind of truck you drive. Now, I'm not judged because I don't care. I couldn't care less. If it's got a fifth wheel, it can hook a trailer and make me money. I don't care. So anyway, David Thomas checking in on YouTube. What's up, y'all? Hope you enjoyed the show. We had a great time. Matt's Truck Show is kind of like our Christmas, if you think. I mean, it's a date in the calendar that we don't miss every year. And we have our driver awards banquet there at the casino. If anybody tried to come by the casino Thursday night and we missed you, I apologize. Man, it was crazy. It was just, I mean, Tuesday, we were planning on being there Wednesday morning for Kevin Rutherford's CMC. So that opened at 9, which meant I had to leave the house at 4, pick up Larry in Lexington, and be in Louisville by 9 a.m. Well, Tuesday, about 10 o'clock, I got the call that one of the trucks was broke down in Charlotte. So I sent Richie with the toter. I gave Richie a crash course in how to use the toter. And so I sent a spare truck to Charlotte and then had a very, very comical episode on FaceTime trying to get Mutt and Jeff how to hook that toter up. There's Richie. I don't remember getting to the show. Yeah, I don't figure you would. So Richie basically from Tuesday morning to sometime Wednesday evening had no sleep. I got about an hour. I got about 2 hours. My wife got about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We picked up Larry. We got to the show Wednesday morning just in time for the CMC to start. I was running on 5-hour energy. And so we did that Wednesday, and after the CMC was over, I'm like, look, I'm going back. I gotta like take a nap. So I laid down, I think at 6:30 Tuesday evening to take a nap, and woke up 11 hours later. So that was pretty much my Wednesday night. And then Thursday, we hadn't planned on the CMC was a day and a half. We hadn't originally planned to go to that, but Kevin wanted Larry to speak. So we went to the CMC Thursday morning, and then we had lunch, and then we walked around the show. Gosh, I don't even remember. Oh yeah, we had dinner with Chris and Margie Dolan from Cam's at Gordon Ramsay's place, which was awesome, by the way. They don't cuss at you, which I was really disappointed. I'm like, this is Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. I feel like I should at least be cussed out once while I was there. And I kept trying, I dropped my steak knife in the floor. And so I was using a butter knife to cut my steak. And I told the waitress, I'm like, hey, here is your opportunity to cuss me out. And she didn't. Hey, Vivian. Anik is in the comment section. Anik was the MC for our banquet, and she was outstanding. It was awesome. And it was great. She was just phenomenal. She's a lot taller on TikTok than she is in person, by the way, just so y'all know that. Richie said he would have cussed at me for free. So that was Thursday. So then after dinner, we went into the bar, and I'm still running on fumes. So we hung out, and I went back to the room, and then went back to the bar. We had grinned plans of trying to like be there. And I know some people came by that missed us, so we apologize for that. It was just a cluster. Then Friday we were at Pittsburgh Power all day. That got a little spicy. Um, and we'll talk about that when and if Larry gets here. So Friday we were basically hanging out over there with Pittsburgh Power, MD Alignment. Rocky's in the house in the comment section. Rocky and MD Alignment guys. The FAST Fuel Systems booth is right there. The Fleet Air Filter booth is right there. I'm gonna tell you, if you're going to go to the show, I would spend as much time in that West Wing as possible, because that's where the little people are. And I don't mean that. I mean like small companies that are trying to bring something to the market. There's just so much packed into that West Wing. I saw Gentry and Sons Trucking. They had Weston Champlin's truck, beautiful Peterbilt. Holy crap! So I got to talk to those guys for a minute. And pack a lunch, $27 for a cheeseburger, fries, and a drink. And it was like high school cafeteria cheeseburger. 1 star, would not recommend. So then Friday night we had the management team went out to dinner. We went out to a place called Cast Iron Steakhouse. It was really good. And then Saturday we were pretty much in the Landstar booth. And then we made our way back to the West Wing and just walked in the West Wing. Got to talk to the truck parking club people. Boy, that's an impressive outfit. If you don't know what truck parking club is, it's kind of like, I mean, the way I understand it is dude just developed an app. Okay. And let's say you have a business that could park 5 trucks. Well, you sign up, you split the revenue, you show up on his app, and there's a place to park a truck, and they're wildly, vary from no facilities to full facilities. We're thinking about, if we can get some property right by the shop, we're thinking about dropping a pin on Truck Parking Club. We could probably get 15 or 20 trucks in there. It's not fancy, but it's certainly a safe place to park a truck where you're not going to get booted, some bullshit like that. We have the shop, we might drop a porta potty or something, but shop's pretty much open all the time. So Truck Parking Club is probably the coolest thing I saw while I was there. I bought a jump start pack. We bought 3 of them, actually. Josh bought 2 and I bought 1. But just a lot of good networking. Ran into Larry Cawthron, ran into the bearded one, Justin Martin, formerly of Freight Waves. Got to hang out with those guys for a few minutes. Lombard Trucking. Gord was all there. There was like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They showed up over at lunch. So it was cool to meet those guys. So yeah, it was a really good time. I'm glad we did it. I came home Sunday and just did nothing because I was exhausted. So I highly recommend at least going once. But you kind of need to have a plan. I would go with somebody that's been before, because they kind of understand the layout. We really like hanging out with the Landstar people, Bob and Michael and Molly and all the Kathy. So they always pretty much send the same crew to the Landstar booth, so we kind of got to be friends with them. Next year I'm going to put on the agenda QLD sessions. I think it's very important to have time set aside for questionable life decisions, where you hang out with Phil. If you're with Phil, there's a lot of alcohol that's going to be consumed. I was just so tired. I was behind from the time we got there and never really caught up. So, um, but if you like to drink and party, there's no, and from what I hear, the MD alignment guys got an Airbnb and, like for the week. And I hear those guys party pretty hard. Rocky, do you even remember, uh, most of that week? The original SB. When I was younger, I wanted to be an owner operator. Now that I'm in trucking, I'm having second probably thoughts. Listen, it's hard. I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about with our people, at the banquet is, um, being an owner operator is the worst job you'll ever have. It is a terrible, terrible job. Um, but if you do it right and if you do it well, it's definitely worth it. But it's not something that you can come at as replacing your job with another job. That's a recipe for absolute disaster. And that's why we're called the lunatics, because we don't do it like everybody else does it. Um, we do it differently. Um, I was talking to a record service guy today here locally, Greg, and you know he's got 14 records running, and he had to turn work down last night. Somebody was broke down, and he said, "Man, I can't do it. We've been up for days." Hell, I was about to send him out. I had a truck misbehaving night before last. What was that, Wednesday night? I had a truck misbehaving. No, it was last night. It was last night. Um, and I thought I was going to have to say, I called him and I said, man, I don't know what to do. I think I'm going to have to send you after this truck. And he said, brother, we ain't slept for days, you know? Um, and he was going to do it, you know, cause we have that kind of relationship. They had there was a dude broke down, in Charleston, I think, and was there from 11 o'clock last night until they drug him into our lot at 4 o'clock today. Nobody'd come get him. And finally, Greg and his guys got some sleep and they went and pulled him into our place. Um, but it's tough when you're in business, you know, it, I was thinking about this today cause today's Good Friday, obviously. And this is the Easter weekend. I got so tickled at one of our drivers. So I have AirPods, right? And so I was working on a truck. I think I was putting an ABS harness on a truck. So I'm sitting like on the differential, monkeying around with this wire. And my phone's laying over on the toolbox, but it's reading text messages to me. And I hear Siri saying, a message, "What the hell is Good Friday? I've been calling all these agents and they say their customers are closed today." So then I hear Josh to Travis, "Well, it's a celebration of our of our Lord Jesus." And so of course Richie tells him to go to church. And then I hear Travis sent a middle finger emoji to Richie and I lost it. Um, but holidays are terrible when you're in business, because it's not that we don't like holidays. It's not that we don't like resting. Um, it just throws a wrench in everything. You get caught up in the grind and you're trying to move, you're just trying to get stuff done. Here comes a holiday and it just destroys your workflow. Um, so I'm thankful for the Easter weekend and all that comes with it. But when you're in business, it just um, uh, things get screwed up by holidays and celebrations and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of difficult, but you just learn to live with it. And I've spent, um, Gosh, I guess I've been at the shop every day this week working on a truck. Um, and finished one up today because I had one breakdown. I think it was Tuesday night. Uncle Rodney came knocking, and so we sent a truck up there to so the driver could finish his load. And brought that truck back, and I had to switch a headache because that guy's a platform driver, and all I had was a van truck, so I had to move a headache rack and had to fix some other stuff and wired up oversized lights and uh I walked in the door about 30 minutes before this podcast was began and covered in grease from head to toe. So yeah, it's been an exciting week. Um uh Still haven't seen Larry. So not sure where Larry's at right now, but I guess I will just press on and see how this goes. I saw I'm gonna see if I can find this Freight Waves article that I saw earlier. Their website's a little hard to. No, no, there it is. Um, Biden administration acknowledges challenge with new truck emissions rule. So let me slide this over here in front of me where I can read it. um, there's just some funny lines in here that I wanted to talk about. This is a quote from Gabe Klein, executive director of the blah, blah, blah. The overarching challenge is aligning the market driven desire from fleets to adopt zero emission freight vehicles with the resources required to make it successful. And right now, they cost more. I think if you wanted to, um, I think if you wanted to translate that into English, um, that's just made up nonsense. The market driven desire from fleets to adopt zero emission freight that's not true. So basically, they're talking about well, the first line. I got to read the Biden administration acknowledged that its aggressive push to decarbonize trucking will be costly, but that the federal government will be here to help. Y'all know what the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So it's talking about subsidies and the phase 3 rule and the EPA, um, cutting pollution, blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to find this line because it goes through and talks about how, um, they're by 2032. Um, I should have highlighted this before I started. The ATA had a comment. OIDA had a comment. Um, well, I've lost the line I was looking for. Anyway, a lot of people get really tore up about this stuff. Now, I don't. I honestly couldn't care less. But I heard a great line, and I am going to absolutely use it as much as I can. Um, it's called Hanlon's Law, Hanlon, Hanlon's Law, and it says, "Never attribute malice to that which can be adequately explained by stupidity." So when I see this kind of nonsense, um, it's not because they're evil. Okay, it's not because they hate trucking and they want to destroy the industry. Um, it's they're dumb. Okay, they have the IQ of a turnip. They're just dumb enough to be manipulated by these snake oil salesmen that come up with these green policies that bankrupt industries and make their investors rich. Um, this is all driven by venture capital because they know they can get those government subsidies. That's what it's about. And I'm not an anti-capitalist by any stretch of the imagination. Um, it is It is venture capital going after government subsidies so they know how to market, and that's where that nonsense line about the market-driven strategy and blah, blah. Nobody wants this, okay? No normal person wants, um, all of this nonsense, okay? Nobody cares. Um, but these venture capital people are really good at manipulating dumb people that got elected to Congress. And dumb people that are elected to Congress like to get reelected. So, it's like the least common denominators of people that are involved in this. And it's all about making a crazy investment, taking a huge gamble on who can get the government contracts. This has nothing to do with clean air. It has nothing to do with saving the environment. It's going to be a disaster, if they survive that long. I don't think they will. Um, so the whole reason I've said this is people will see this and like, oh my God, what's going to happen? I don't have that response. I do not have a fair response because this is not the first time in American history that the government's tried to do something really, really stupid, and it never works out. It never works out the way they think it's going to, because human behavior is like water in a creek. You can throw a boulder in the middle of a creek and the water goes around it. And you can throw two more boulders and the water just goes up and goes around. You could build a dam and the water goes up and eventually flows over top of it. They never count human behavior because in their mind, they believe their own BS. And they believe that people are just going to hear their propaganda or their marketing spiel, basically, of, oh, we're going to save the planet and save the environment. And everybody's going to go, okay, sure, let's do it. You know? Uh, so anyway, uh, I have, uh, I have a surprise for y'all. You're going to love this because let me click a couple buttons here. I have Phil Freeze about to join me on this here podcast and save me from having to talk to myself for an hour and a half. So there he is. Try to angle your camera
This
down.
is Larry.
Uh-oh. What'd you say?
I said, this is Larry Long.
Yeah. Well, your beard's gotten uh a little darker. Andrew Elkington.
Yeah.
Who's that? Name sounds familiar. Well, I got Phil joining me. So
So,
why don't you tell? I gave my report from the truck show. What was your booze infused version of the truck show? Because you consumed a lot of alcohol. Am I right?
well, I don't remember a damn thing. So there you go.
That's what I figured.
Um, yeah. No, it was a good truck show, honestly. I mean the CMC and all that, Um, I think, I mean, it, I enjoy going up there and seeing all the vendors and everything that applies to the flatbed and platform, everything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
man, I got to tell you guys, if
You
you
got
need
some
some good
prices.
deals on equipment, man,
Hell yeah.
holy crap. And we were buying, you know, grade 8, 20-foot 3/8 chains for what I think like $35, $36. And Barb she went to the securement class and they gave her, apparently Landstar has a deal with some little mom and pop's place down around Dallas Fort Worth area, and their prices, I think they were charging like $55 for one of those chains.
Wow.
And of course the binders were dirt cheap also, but she loaded up for she got some really good prices on hers. But
Oh yeah.
and that's the thing about it. too, I mean, not only do you get to see the, the innovative new products that's coming out for the industry, but, the things that we've used for years and years, I mean, you can get those considerably cheaper than you can, at a truck stop or shops or wherever, so it's, and of course, it's, it goes without saying that, these truck stops, they don't overcharge anybody for anything anyway, right? But,
Right.
um, I mean, it's getting to where, their prices, I mean, they're pricing themselves out of business, in my opinion, because, the drivers have gotten to where, of course, the trucks have got more modernized now to where a lot of drivers got the refrigerators and the microwaves and all that in there. So, you know, you carrying your own food and stuff, and you're not going in there. I mean, you go in one of them eating, it's, what, $30 or something like that. Just sit
Oh,
down and eat. So,
oh yeah.
I mean, it's like going to the truck show and getting lunch or whatever, right?
Oh,
You know, but yeah, I mean, the truck show, it was great. I enjoyed it, had a good time. It's good to get up there and network. We brought Cliff up there uh, for the platform guys and everything, and I think Cliff really enjoyed it. I know all the platform people enjoyed it. So it was, it was a good experience for everybody. I think they probably got a lot of insight from him, and
mhm.
I can't get this camera angle any better, so it's
It'll be all
kind
right.
of is what it is.
You sound
Um,
good. That's all that matters on a
yeah,
podcast. You sound good.
right. So, I mean, it's I wanted to bring him up there to, give these guys, like I said, some insight as to where I came from and, who taught me all the things that I know about platform stuff. So, and kind of, give them a better idea of what kind of person I am, I guess, and let them see that. So, I think that probably was helpful for sure. So, but
Yeah, I I I like seeing products um like that because I I hate marketing a lot of times. Um because and we had by the way, we had a fantastic conversation at the TA booth. I'll tell you all about here in a minute. Um But like the guy that had the little wire stripper thing, he showed me that and I'm like, dude, take my
right,
money. I'm tapping the debit card on the table doing that, take my money thing. I got to have that. Um, but getting to meet a lot of the people that are at the trade show, especially if it's a developing product, they're the guy. They haven't sent a sales team because they don't have one.
oh
They
yeah,
are the sales team. So it's cool to see stuff like that,
right,
to see new products. Um, and I met a guy. It's called Pacific Air, I think. And they sell air compressors, condensers, all that stuff. And I called him the other day because I've got a really weird situation where we converted a truck from a York style compressor to a Sandon, and they had what I needed, and the compressor was like $130 for an AC compressor. You know,
yeah,
uh, we
right,
met a couple. Josh and I met a couple from China that had fuel filters all laid out, right? And this this big Davco that's on all the Freightliners, okay, it's $168 at Matheny, okay, where we get great prices. I've seen people talking about paying 200 and 210, 215 for a damn fuel filter for a Cascadia. And that she was telling me that they've been one of the big suppliers in China of these fuel filters, and they've only come into the US market in the last 4 years. But her dad owns the factory in China. And she was like, so, we make the filters. And so, dude, we were looking at like getting these filters for like $50. And then the dude that was with her, I don't know if it's her husband or whatever, and and if you buy a whole container, it's 30% off. And I'm like, okay, probably not going to buy a whole container, but I might start out with a $500 order because. And I picked them up, I touched them. I mean, the others are probably made in China too, right? So let's skip the middleman. But it was incredible. We were looking at, different, there was lots of international people there. Oh, hell, I've got it right here. Listen, this is what you walk away with. Listen, I've got brochures coming out my ears from all of the people that we talked to. Here's the AC guy, Phoenix Mobile Air. That's the one that has all the condensers and stuff. I got business cards. I got Trucker Social, Truck Parking Club, which that was fantastic. Bulletproof Diesel, EGR coolers. I mean, there's so much out there. And in a lot of cases, with these smaller people, you can get direct deals with. Whereas, like, like Rev HD, we were trying to get connected straight with Rev HD because right now we go through the Peterbilt dealer to get spindles and stuff. I just lost Phil. Not spindles, but spindle nuts and wheel seals. And it's crazy that I could do a deal with a small place, but a lot of these big places, they're like, well, can you do 100,000 a month? And I'm like, probably not in the beginning, but if you'll give me a damn, if you'll give me a chance in the, well, there's some interesting comments on YouTube. I gotta, cause I'm trying to watch two different comment sections here. Somebody's talking about, old truck. Somebody's talking about $50,000 to end frame of Detroit. 50,000 worst case scenario. Dude, you don't know. You don't have any
12.7 Detroit. If you pay $50,000 to end frame of 12.7, yeah, that's.
I can rebuild. I can rebuild a Detroit for 15,000. 15,000 max.
Absolutely.
Now, if you take it to Western or a Detroit shop, they'll charge you 35 to do the same thing that we can do for 15.
Right.
But that's the one thing, because I see part of the conversation. It's hard. There's a ton of comments. They're all going back and forth. Now that I have been working in this shop, I've gotten to see a whole different side of it. I see just as many 2022s and, well, hell, we had one on the lot a few weeks ago. It was a 2024 Cascadia with a DD15 and the motor was blown. It had like 24,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, a truck that new is going to be covered under warranty. How long is it going to sit there?
Yeah. And that's just it. That's what people don't understand is, I got to get a truck with a warranty on it. And they go buy that truck with a warranty on it. And the first time that something goes wrong with it and that truck sits there for a month waiting for them to fix it. And then they're wondering how they're going to make that payment on it. And it's like, yeah, how much is that warranty really worth to you, Because I've never had a warranty on any of these trucks that I've ever owned. And I take that back. This one I have now, they gave me like some kind of bullcrap 3-month warranty on it that probably wasn't worth the paper it was written on. I never had any problems with it, so I never had to deal with it. But, it was allegedly in the price of the truck. So I didn't pay any extra for it. I wouldn't have. They tried to get me to, buy a longer warranty for it. And I'm like, absolutely no. It's not happening.
Well, we've always used 15 cents a mile, right? So in your average year, 120,000, that's $18,000. So 18,000 divided by 12, $1,500 a month. And that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Now, will you do, if you buy a used truck right now, let's say you get, one of these 2021s that are selling at auction right now for 25 grand. You know, everybody's asking, like, when do you do the Lunatic 2.0 where you don't do it with a 99 to 07, you do it with a 16 to 21? Well, now's the time because they are on sale.
Yes,
Okay, so
absolutely.
you buy a 21. Let's say you buy a $21,000 2021 Cascadia with 700,000 bushings. I promise you, the bushings and torque rods are shot. Okay, that's $2,500. You need an alignment.
Yep.
You need decent tires. I had a guy come up to me at the Pittsburgh Power booth, Suleiman. Is a and he goes, hey, my fuel mileage is bad. And I'm like, you know, and I'm thinking, okay, but he opens his phone and he's got fuel gauges. And I'm like, okay, you're actually tracking your fuel. Great. And I said, do you have shitty tires? And he said, I have Firestone. I said, okay, you have shitty tires. And we were talking about like what the sweet spot of the engine. And he was like, I was like, what RPM do you run? And he was like, 1600. I'm like, how fast do you drive? And he was like, 72. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to slow down. We're going to get some decent tires. But my favorite part, and I said, you know, you need to get some decent tires, but you need to have good alignment so you don't destroy those those good tires. And he goes, I have a good alignment. I said, really? Tell me about it. Where'd you get it? And he named some place and he pulls up their website. And so I scroll through their website on his phone and I get to the point where it says alignment. And it was like, oh, wear and tear on your vehicle cause your alignment to go out. And so we're going to return your vehicle to its manufacturer's specifications.
Specifications.
I
Yep.
said, come with me. And we walked over to Rocky. I said, Rocky, this is Suleiman. He says he has a good alignment. And Rocky says, what'd you pay for it? And he said, $300. And Rocky said, you'd been better off to drive by that place, roll the window down and throw $300 out the window. And so I read that. And so I said, Rocky, get him. And so Rocky went through the whole thing of explaining performance spec versus build spec and an as driven alignment versus turn. I mean, Rocky just went off. And
Right.
And I said, listen, buying tires is a huge investment. And then, of course, the display that they had sitting there was a set of steer tires that had 291,000 miles on them. It's incredible, you know. The problem is the new trucks are manageable. I see it every day, right? They come in. Chris had one at 3:00 this morning. The driver parked it. It was an auto shift, and he didn't put it in neutral before he shut it off. Well, then the air drained off, and when he went to turn it back on, it wouldn't start because it was stuck in drive. And so
Right.
Chris had to go out there and manually fill the tanks with air, and then monkey around with the computer. Well, that was probably a minimum road cost $375, you know. And that gets you 2 hours. So if he was there, I think he said he was there till 5:00 in the morning. But that could be $500 or $600 just because you forgot to put it in neutral before you shut it off, you know. And it's going to take you a long time with a bicycle pump to get that air pressure built up enough to get that thing out of drive.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, on a Freightliner, a CPC can go out, and all of a sudden your throttle pedal don't work. We had one last week that came in, and that hill assist thing, you know, with the automatic, I guess it'll help hold it on the hill.
Yeah, mine's got that.
Well, it had malfunctioned, and the dude walked in with the little module that had the 3 buttons, and the one was broke off. And we're like, what happened? He was like, I need to replace this. And we're like, what happened to it? He said, I punched it. So
Oh,
those are problems that I do not have to encounter with an older truck, right? With a 2007 manual shift Detroit. Those are things I will not encounter. Now, let's talk about something that I did encounter. I had a truck last week that was being reported with some electrical issues. Well, on any truck, I don't care if it's a 1992 or a 2022, you need to check your battery cables. If one of them is loose, if one of them is corroded, it can wreak havoc on these trucks, and they'll start doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So
That includes you, Richie.
Yeah, as we found out. So I told the driver, I'm like, hey, you got to check the battery cables. He sent me a video of him checking the battery cables. And I'm like, man, I don't know it. Maybe it's a sensor harness. Maybe it's a sensor. I'm not sure what's going on. Well, a couple of days later, he calls. It was Tuesday, the one we sent Richie after. He said, man, it just shut off.
Right.
And I'm like, it's Tuesday. I'm packing. Like I'm getting ready to go. I don't have time to mess with this. And I thought, man, if it's some kind of crazy electrical issue on this truck, I'm not just going to call anybody. And so I rolled the dice and I said, you know what, just go after it and bring it back to me. So when we got back from the show, I opened the battery box. They had 6 volts, completely dead. And I found a loose battery cable. And I tightened that up. I jump started it. It would crank, but it wouldn't start. And then I looked at the fuel filter, and the fuel filter's empty. And I'm like, well, that's odd. Maybe there were 2 separate things going on here. Maybe we had an issue with the electrical that caused by the loose battery cable, but now maybe I've got a check valve or something that's leaking fuel and it's losing prime. So we take an air hose and we stick it in the fuel tank and we're pressurizing the tanks to find the leak. And I'm literally laying on the ground under the truck, and I'm looking at all the fuel lines, and they're pushing air and nothing's happening. And I said, hey guys, stop. Will y'all please check and see if this thing has any fuel in it? And so they stuck a flashlight down in there and they went, no, it's empty. I towed a truck home from Charlotte, North Carolina because it was out of fuel.
Yeah. I've never driven a truck with an accurate fuel gauge. I don't care how old or how new it was. The thing is, you go past the truck stop, and you'll think to yourself, I probably should stop and get fuel, but traffic's good, you're in a hurry, things are going well, and the minute you pass that truck stop, that fuel gauge drops about a quarter of a tank every time. So, I mean, these things, they're not that accurate. They're not that accurate to begin with, but the older they get, and especially if you're driving a truck that you don't know that much about,
Mm-hmm.
you can't trust something like that. Because, I mean, that's, you pay somebody, if you actually had to pay somebody to tow that truck up to Charleston, you're probably a couple thousand into that, and then probably 500 to 1,000 to diagnose that truck. So, you're looking at $3,000 because you ran it out of fuel. I mean, that's not a mistake you want to make as an owner operator for sure. So you got to keep, stay on top of stuff like that, because that's the kind of stuff that puts you out of business.
So here's a comment. You'll love this one. Randy Wheeler. Sometimes the way these guys talked, they act like no one ever makes it by buying a truck with a warranty. According to them, it's impossible. Okay, well, that's not true. I've never said it's impossible. I have said it's dumb. I've said it's risky. I've said that your chances of failure are much, 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 much higher if you buy a new truck with a warranty, unless you pay cash for it. Now, if you go to the dealership and you write them a check and you pay cash for that truck and you have some savings, but I've watched 2 separate guys, okay? I know of 2 guys that both went to Prime and they did a full lease. I think it was a 3-year. Each one of them did a 3-year lease with Prime. And they succeeded. They completed the lease. And when they were done, both of them had a pile of cash. Now, neither one of them ever went home. Okay. They just worked for 3 years straight like animals. Unbelievable work ethic. Both of them had a pile of cash. I know the one guy had $80,000. Okay. Both of them paid cash for trucks, came to Landstar, and both of them failed. Both of them.
Yep.
Neither one of them is an owner operator today. Was it a work ethic problem? Nope. Was it a revenue problem? Nope. The one guy, I booked all of his loads and I put almost $600,000 on him in 2022 gross before Landstar. Okay. It was $560 or $570,000 gross. Okay. Wasn't a money problem. It was a bad decision problem. He made really bad decisions and they eventually caught up to him. And not only did he lose his, he lost his lease to Landstar, he lost his license for a time. Didn't have anything to do with the truck. Didn't have anything to do with the freight. Didn't have anything to do with anything except he did not make good business decisions and it destroyed his business. The other guy, I'm trying to think, I think he had like $60,000 cash when he left Prime, paid cash for a truck. It was deleted. He didn't know what that meant. It was a 2012 Cascadia, 12 or 13, one or the other. Didn't know it was deleted, had no idea until after he bought it. The maintenance cost drove him in the ground. And when it was all said and done, he had used the entire $65,000 and was like $30,000 in debt. It has nothing to do with the year of the truck. It has nothing to do with whether or not it has a warranty. If you get into business and you make bad decisions, you will fail every single time.
Absolutely.
Now, the reason that we preach on paid for trucks is if you will work like an animal, like these guys did, okay, and have a big pile of cash. Let's say you invested $25,000 or $30,000 into a truck and it's paid for, okay, and you drive it 90 days and it burns to the ground. Well, take your insurance check and buy another one. But see, our trucks don't sit around 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 weeks waiting on warranty work. Our trucks get fixed in a day or two. So I've never said that an old truck won't break down, and I've never said that a new truck won't break down, because they're both trucks and they will both break down 100% of the time. They will all break down. The question is, how long is it going to take to fix it? What's it going to cost to fix it? We know what we can manage, but there are the landscape right now is littered with the corpses of dead trucking companies, single truck owner operators, and they're blaming the freight, and they're blaming the brokers, and they're blaming the carriers, and they're blaming the president, and they're blaming Congress. We have decided at the truck show that we're going to buy little handheld mirrors, blue, of course, for Blue Ribbon. And we're going to hand those out. And when you want to know what the source of your problem is in business, all you have to do is pick up that mirror and look and see what the problem is. If your business fails, it's your fault, nobody else's. I have been in this business 27 years now. I don't give a crap about warranty. It's meaningless to me because I have, well, and I've watched you got the factory warranty and then you got this aftermarket garbage. I watched that shit happen last summer, where a truck came into cams, and having to go back and forth with this warranty company is an absolute nightmare. Well, do this. Okay. We did that. Then you have to send all your paperwork and your proof in, and then you wait. And in a day or two, they'll get back to you and they say, okay, now do the next step. And so there was like 12 different steps. We knew what was wrong with the truck the day that it came in the lot. They knew exactly what was wrong with it, knew exactly what it would take to fix it. And if the driver would have just had money, the thing would have been fixed in a couple of days. Instead, it sat there for 2.5 weeks waiting on the warranty company to finally approve the repair that we knew it needed 2 weeks before that. Now,
Yeah, and so how much revenue did he lose?
thousands of dollars. Now, if
Yeah.
y'all would be honest with me and just accept, okay, yes, I bought a $8,000 warranty, and it might pay. They might pay for everything if I've actually read the fine print, which I won't because I don't read contracts because I'm a truck driver. And once I've sat there for 6 weeks, well, what would you rather have? Would you rather just pay an $8,000 bill and have your truck running in a couple of days? But I've watched, because we're Blue Ribbon and we're the mentor training people, we get the stories. I get the emails every week of, well, it took 6 weeks to get my truck fixed and they paid half, which was great. But I didn't have any money saved and my payments caught up to me and the bank repossessed my truck.
Yeah.
Well, how the hell did warranty help you there? Your truck got repossessed. That didn't help you. So
that warranty's not worth the paper it's written on.
So all I'm saying is, I want you, if you truly want to get in the trucking business, you truly want to get into business, do it. But don't do it in a way that if one thing goes wrong, it destroys your life. That's what I see. It's not about warranty versus no warranty or new truck versus old truck. That's all smoke and mirrors nonsense. That has nothing to do with it. It's risk versus reward. If you take on too much risk, you'll be the bridge, or you'll be the you'll be the ship that knocks the key bridge into the dam. So why didn't that driver that had his truck repossessed rent a truck and keep working until his truck was done? Well, maybe he couldn't. You cannot rent a truck if you're leased to Landstar. And that's the case with most carriers, because the carrier insurance requirements may not allow for it, even if Ryder will give you one. Ryder won't give you one. Now, if you're an independent, I've known of guys that have rented trucks, but renting a truck is super expensive. I mean, I talked to the Ryder. There was a Ryder shop right beside Cam's at the old location. And I had talked to them one time, and I'm like, so if I'm an owner operator and I wanted to rent a truck because mine's down, he was like, well, are you leased to a carrier or are you independent? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm leased to a carrier. He's like, no. First of all, no. And if you are an independent owner operator and you have the history and you have the credit, they will rent you a truck. But boy, you better be ready to pay for it, because it is going to be stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And Dave Thomas, dude's a company driver coming in here trying to tell truck owners how to run a business. Look, I have been a truck owner. I manage an 11 truck fleet right now. Phil has been an owner operator for 10 years. Larry's been in business for 70 years or 50 years. He's 70, 50 years.
13 years for me.
13 years for Phil. You got to think about marketing. Okay. And this is one of the great things about the Dave Ramsey program back in the day, the very first iteration of Financial Peace University, which was 2006, 7. But he said he went through marketing and the whole crowd is there. And he goes, where's and everybody went beef. And he goes, melts in your mouth. And everybody goes, not in your hand. And he's repeating these marketing slogans. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, warranties are a marketing device. Okay. That's buy a truck from me and I will give you this. We've got to some point, we've got to stop allowing ourselves to be manipulated by marketing. The TA booth. Okay. We met a couple of really nice dudes that are in upper management over truck service. And y'all know, I could not wait to say, hey, have y'all heard about Flatbed John? And they're like, No. And I said, oh, sit down. Let me tell you a story. So I told the whole story, the whole Oak Grove TA, and pulled the transmission out. And the further I got into the story, the more horrified this guy was, because apparently he hadn't heard the story yet. But I said, listen, here's what I need from TA. Okay. I need y'all to stop telling me you have the best technicians on the highway, because that's not true. And he was kind of like, yeah, that's not true. Tell me the truth. Tell me that, listen, we can do brakes and tires and oil changes, and sometimes chassis lubes.
Sometimes.
But stop with the marketing, because nobody's buying it. Okay. And I told this guy, I said, listen, here's another problem that y'all have. Let's say I go into a shop, okay, and if the shop sucks, it's a top-down problem. It's because the truck manager sucks, the TSA sucks, and the mechanics could be great. But if you have a terrible TSA writing up the work orders, and you have a terrible manager, that shop's going to suck. And I said, the problem that I have as a consumer, okay, and I have to use y'all a lot, is if I run into a situation where maybe the district manager, they got some fancy name for it, maybe he doesn't understand that the general manager sucks and the TSA sucks. How can I tell you? Because I can't get through the gatekeepers at the 1-800 service. They don't care. They're just typing and typing.
Yeah.
But all they're doing is sending it to the guy that sucks. Well, he's not going to do anything about it. And the guy was like, here's my card. So now, and I said, look, dude, I'm not going to blow you up. I'm not going to wear you out. But if I run into a situation where your TSA sucks and your management at that location sucks, I'm at least going to say, hey, buddy, everybody here sucks. So, you can trust, and I'm going to tell you the truth.
Right.
But it's just hard, and you have to be, and when you're in business, you have to be the guy that does the problem solving, because nobody's going to do it for you. Is he still on the lot at TA? No, he left, and he deleted his TikTok. It's gone. I don't know. Maybe the TA lawyers got a hold of him. The one I just sent you had an annual. Rocky just sent me something, I guess. Oh, he sent me a video. Let me look at this real quick. Rocky's, it's a video of him inspecting a truck on a MD alignment. He said the last P trip was done on it February 23rd. It looks like, oh my gosh, the steering, the U joint on the steering box is like completely moving. Holy crap. Yeah, I could play it, Rocky, but it would take lots of wizardry, and my computer's screaming at me right now. When we lost Carl, and I mean, he got too sick to work, I'm just now seeing how much in disrepair our trucks are, because it's only been in the last 6 months or so that I've really been able to get them in and look at them. Right. But when we had Carl would see these trucks once every couple of weeks. Oh, hey, what you going to do about this? And what you going to do about this? And what you going to do about that? And hey, let's fix this. And now these trucks are coming in, and it's been about a year, and I'm saying, holy crap. And it's little stuff that grew to be big stuff, and now
Right.
I'm getting them in, and I'm catching it, and I'm able to
Just like,
kind of, yeah.
like the S cams on.
Oh gosh, almighty. And
Yeah,
you can't expect truck drivers, any truck driver, right? To understand. All the driver knows is, man, when I hit the brakes, this thing shakes really bad. And so I went and drove it, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of shaking. It's weird, you know. And he's like, what's my steering wheel? And I'm like, okay, well, I look and and I've jacked it up and I'm turning the wheels and I'm checking kingpins and I'm looking for drums that are around. And I said, well, let me go look in the back. And the brake shoes on the rear axle were kicked sideways, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So of course, I called the hotline. Rocky, what is this? Um, and it was because the S cam's bushings were worn out. So when the cam was turning, it was turning like this. It was turning sideways, and it was literally pushing the brakes out. So I tore the whole thing down, all new S cams, because the S cams were gutted. S cam bushings, brake shoes, and drums. Well, now that truck's good for, I don't know, probably 500,000 miles, because at least I know I'll grease the damn thing. But and this is the stuff that we see that the average driver doesn't get to see. And I've got to see it a lot more. Dude, I've seen a truck, okay, that is so horribly maintained from January 1st to today. $70,000 has been sent on this truck. 70 grand. And the dude wrote the check. I mean, he didn't ask a question. He didn't say, why'd you charge me so much? He just stroked a check for 40 grand for a motor and all kinds of other stuff. They don't change the oil. They literally refuse to change the oil in this truck. And they don't ever sit, And I guess, which, I mean, we're obviously in the wrong business. But if they just change the oil, that truck could be fine. But it's baffling. And then I see owner operators come in, and they're hardworking people. Okay. I know a bunch of y'all don't want to hear this, and a bunch of them are immigrants. But they bust their butts. Okay. But they're a headlight bulb away from bankruptcy. They don't really know what they're doing. They don't really understand trucks. And then things come in, or things happen, and we see what's going on with this truck, and you try to say, okay, well, hey, you've got this problem, but over here you have this other problem developing. Oh, no, too much, can't do it. There's one laid over day before yesterday, with 52,000 pounds of chicken in a container. I was talking to the record driver today, and he said it looks like the tie rod broke, and over he went. And they've got that container sitting behind our shop because there's a Thermo King in the other building.
Oh God.
I was like, what exactly are y'all going to do with the 52,000 pounds of chicken? Because I'm not looking forward to that smell if that reefer goes down. So
That's
I'm
a
hoping
fact.
nothing. So apparently Larry's internet was down.
Okay.
Well, I'm just going to tell Phil is doing it with, because if he
You can
don't have
put him in
internet,
here if you want to.
well, if he don't have internet, his internet's terrible. And when it's
I
bad,
got you.
it's really, really, really bad.
All right. I mean, I know from experience, owning trucks 13 years, that, you have to keep up with the maintenance on these things, because like you said, the small things turn into bigger things.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I just spent over the last couple of weeks, somewhere over in the vicinity of $4,500 to replace airbags on the truck and the trailer, So literally I believe I counted them up the other day, between the cab airbags, suspension airbags. I think there's 13 new airbags on my truck and trailer set up right now.
Wow.
So yeah, that gets expensive, especially because I took the trailer to the shop and let them do that. I did all of the ones on the truck myself, but after looking at the ones on the trailer, I elected to pay somebody to do that. So, and I have no regrets on that one. But of course, the labor was, pretty extensive on it. But at the same time, I didn't spend all 2 days of my entire life trying to cut the rusted crap out of there. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing about it is, doing what I do with a heavy haul and everything, you come out here on the highway or on the road, you have a problem with the airbag or something like that, and these ones on this truck or the trailer I have is specialized airbags. They'd order these things, so it's not like you're going to your local TA and they're going to have them in stock. So when those things goes out, you've got some problems, And what's it going to cost you then when you're sitting on the side of the road?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 13 foot
but
wide and 100 foot long, that
yeah, exactly.
people don't like, big loads in their way.
That's a
Um,
fact.
Somebody made a comment on TikTok. Biggest thing I see in the market I'm in is you can tell the drivers don't pre-trip. Yeah. Um,
Yeah,
uh, the,
that's the thing.
the, there's most of this stuff. The one I brought in that was out of fuel. I looked at the right rear wheel and it was covered with oil. And I'm like, hey, we got an axle seal or, axle gasket leaking. So I yanked the axle out of it, put a new gasket on it, put it back up, put 2.5 gallons of oil in that. There's stuff that
That's been
shouldn't
leaking for
happen.
a while.
There's two lists in life. Okay. There's a list of stuff that shouldn't happen, and there's a list of stuff that can't happen. Okay. And on the can't happen list is you cannot continue to drive a truck spraying gear oil out until the rear end burns up. Those rear ends are
Yeah,
$2,500 plus the tow bill, plus the labor. I mean, it's so easily caught if you'll just walk around the truck. The number of times that a truck has come into me and I'm like, "Hey, do you know those lights aren't working?" "Oh, yeah, I didn't notice that." You know, your brake shoes are completely gone. Your tires are wore out. Your lights don't work. "Oh yeah, I didn't notice that." Well, you
it's
better
because
start
you
learning
didn't
to
do a
notice it.
pre-trip.
Yeah. It's not rocket science. El Guero, most drivers couldn't tell the difference between a fifth wheel and a steering wheel. Well, listen, brother, you ain't lying. Um, I mean, I I'm 48, so I came from a time when your dad would, you know, change the alternator on the car um and do his own brakes, So I realized that my generation was exposed to a lot of things that I just kind of understood what basic things were. I had an experienced owner operator one time, okay, with a lot of experience. And he laid his hand on the alternator and goes, "That's the AC compressor, right?" And I was like, "No, no, it's not." "Oh, TMFD." Um, so it's an inside joke. I'm not going to tell y'all. I just did that for Phil. Um,
Well, there's more people on here than me.
uh, uh, at some point in my life, I got to where I could recognize um, experience and value experience. I don't know if it's like kind of the nature of the school system in America, but we kind of grow up, it seems like, well, just do whatever somebody tells you, or the first thing that you hear that kind of makes sense or comes from some authority or some certified, Um, but I stopped valuing that and I started valuing experience. So when I was introduced to MD alignment and Mike Beckett. And I listened to Mike Beckett and I listened to what he said. And I'm like, okay, this is this knowledge or this information. There we go. This information is based on experience. So if you go to someone like Rocky in Florida, or you go to Chad Hone in Kansas City, or you go to Jim Fowler in Michigan, there's lots of MD alignment people. Okay. But there's like three really big names. There's and Martine, and there's one other one. If Rocky's still on here, tell me the guy that's in Ohio. I can't think of his name right now. There's an MD guy in Ohio that's really good. But I listen, and then you learn to ask why. And then shut up. If someone is giving you information, ask them, oh, okay, why? And stop talking. That will finally tune your bullshit detector. Because that's what it's all about, is can you take in information, process that information, and go, no, sounds like bullshit to me. And that's what I did when we had the problem with the truck that was running bad, and they wanted $10,000 to fix it. And so I said, okay, why? Walk me through your diagnosis. So he did. He said, well, I think it's this because of that and this, that, and the other. And I looked at the estimate, and I looked at the parts that they had listed on the estimate. And I'm like, well, you said you were going to fix that, but you got parts for this. And I went, even though that shop came recommended by someone we trust, I went, no. Brought it home and fixed it with a fuel filter.
Yeah.
You know, here we go. Rocky, Jerry Woodland, T&T Laser Alignment in Bellevue, Ohio, Martine in Ocala, and Jim Fowler in Michigan. So there's the four horsemen of the MD apocalypse. Rocky, Jim, Chad, and Jerry. And there's another guy here. I think his name's Jerry too. It's northern West Virginia, southeast Ohio. Unfortunately, I forget his name, but he ain't watching this, so it won't hurt his feelings. But even you can go on the MD Alignment website, and what Worldwide Equipment in Cross Lane shows up as an MD shop, and I promise you, they ain't never heard of MD Alignment. You know, but somebody somewhere along the line bought the equipment. So even that, you have to have some discernment, and you have to look at what they're telling you, and then say, okay, can you back up what you're doing? Havares, do you still think it's a good time for flatbed at Landstar? Well, I'm looking at the van numbers, and I'm looking at the platform numbers, and it is an overwhelming win by our platform guys right now. Now, of course, on the screen, you'll see the greatest flatbed dispatcher in the history of man. But I mean, the numbers do not lie. We have had very, very good experience with platform at Landstar. So,
yeah. And that's the thing, you know, when I started dispatching for Blue Ribbon back whenever it was, I don't think anybody here had any idea whether this would actually work or not with the Blue Ribbon program. And I don't think anybody really had any high hopes for it either. So, but it's turned out to be lucrative.
Since he's not here to defend himself, there was a time when Larry Long said the platform was dumb. There's too much deadhead. You can't make any money, and I will not operate platform equipment. And now we got more platform than we do van.
Well, in his defense, I did deadhead 470 miles to get this load. So, but you know, for what it paid, you know, I'm good. So
Not a step deck. No, I would not. I would not do step deck unless you are going to specialize, and you really, if you don't have the rating for it, I wouldn't. You know.
well, here's the other thing too. Look at if you're coming to Landstar, I mean, you want to be in the flatbed to begin with because all you have to do is look at the load board and search it, any given location, the number of step deck loads versus the number of flatbed loads, and you'll find out real quick that there's a lot more flatbed loads than there are step deck loads. And eh, and that's the other thing too. You guys, if you've been listening the past couple of weeks, y'all may know who Cliff Parker is by now, but
Mm-hmm.
he he's got a step deck too that he dispatches, and he's even made a couple comments to me that, hey, it's not that easy to find freight for that thing right now. Now, back a couple years ago when, freight was paying $4 or $5 a mile for these things going wherever you wanted to go, it wasn't a problem. But now that the market slowed down, step deck has really slowed down. It seems like a lot more than what the flatbeds have. But I mean, yeah, it's a great time to come to Landstar with a flatbed because if you can get in it now while it's kind of slow and you can get it figured out now and get your business
Yeah.
going in the right direction, man, when this thing picks up, you're going to be in good shape. So,
Yeah. And people always, is this a good time to get into trucking? Yeah, it's the best time and the worst time. It's the best time because you're going to learn how to survive in this market. There's a lot of
yep,
people that came in 21 and 22 when you could be brain dead and make money. But now, you really have to think, and you really have to make the right decisions if you're going to survive in this market. So, um, uh, it's the best time, but it's the worst time because it's hard. It's quite a bit harder. Um, Wade M says, "Can't you use your step deck as a flatbed?" I guess he's talking about with bridges.
I mean, for certain loads, but not all of them. I mean, there's certain things that have to be on a flatbed. And certain things if you buy the ramps for the step deck that doubles as bridges, those work for some things, but not everything. So, um, I mean, I would say, the answer to that question is buy the flatbed. Just buy the flatbed.
Yeah.
Randy Wheeler's he's already asked this twice. Any opportunities for someone with heavy haul experience that has haul still for 19 years? Yeah, there's opportunities. Um, Chris, you want to do your Blue Ribbon website where you can go on there and fill out an application?
Uh, well, I'll say this: as far as the Blue Ribbon program is concerned, it really doesn't matter. Your experience hauling steel could be very limited, or it could it could help you hauling a coil, but it might not help you hauling the other stuff. So I'm not
That's
sure if the
true.
question is for Blue Ribbon specifically or just in Landstar.
Yeah.
Um, what we see a lot of times, and we've had this problem with former BCOs trying to come into our program, is they want to talk about their experience and then not listen. Um, I don't, if you came into our program, which is designed to teach you how to run a successful, sustainable business, and you won't use your ears twice as much as you use your mouth, I don't really care about your experience. Your experience is meaningless. Um, because I've put people through this program that came here didn't know how to use a map, Richie. um, uh, but what does Richie have over everybody else? Richie would listen, and then Richie would change. He would do what he was doing different.
And he's also got a paid for truck.
Right. Lance Calhoun, do you guys use any certain kind of batteries? Nope, just regular old batteries. I did see, though, I was at Matheny the other day, and somebody is selling what used to be called a Maxwell start module, big capacitor. It's about $1,000. But the Maxwell had gone away. I've got a friend, Dan, that still has a Maxwell on his truck. I don't know if they went out of business or what happened, but and I can't think of the name of it right offhand. But when you use one of those, you can use the deep cycle marine batteries, which will carry your hotel load a lot better. And then you use the starting module or the big capacitor to run the starter. So that is a that's a worthwhile investment because it only takes a couple of jump starts to pay for that thing. Your video is turned sideways for some reason. I'm wondering if he's froze up. Looks like he's froze up. Mark the
How about
mailman.
now? We good?
Oh, there you are. Mark the mailman. Which tire pressure monitor do you recommend? We use one. It's called TST, Truck Systems Technologies. You can buy it at a website called technorv.com. It's about $450 with 8 sensors because we run singles. And even if we have duals, you can put like a cat's eye on it or a crossfire and still have 8 sensors. So about $450, but yeah, it will save you a ton of money because tire pressure. Underinflation kills tires. Oh, and almost this is funny. Had a BCO mentoring client, and everybody has always screamed and raised hell about us running super singles. Well, if you have a blowout, it ruins the wheel. Okay. Well, we figured up that since 2009, when Larry started running singles to now, which is, if I'm counting right, that's 15 years. We've had 4 blowouts. We lost 1 wheel, not because of the blowout, because the wheel was the problem causing the blowout. Or our guy blew a dual tire last week or week before, and it ruined his rim. So this idea that, and I mean, as soon as it blew, he hit the shoulder, and that wheel was destroyed before he got stopped. So he had to buy 2 tires and a rim. So I rest my case.
Yeah.
The reason we suggest step deck over flatbed is a step deck.
You got that backwards. It's flatbed over step deck, not step deck over flatbed.
Well, that's what the comment says. Why do they suggest step deck over flatbed? We don't. Maybe he's got that backwards. Anyway, we suggest flatbed over step deck just because you have more freight available to you. Now, if you work yourself into a position where you can highly specialize yourself in a niche with a step deck, I say go ahead.
Yeah.
But don't think step deck and flatbed are not equal when it kind of comes to running general freight. Well, and even not general freight, but much of the specialized stuff that we could do with a 53-foot flat, you can't do with a step deck.
Well, not only that, but there's a lot of things that you can do with a flatbed that you can't do with a step deck. I mean, this load that I'm hauling out, there's a certain somebody that has been in the platform longer than anybody here at Blue Ribbon that could do this load right now with his truck trailer.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be specialized to do some of this oversized stuff. I mean, all you have to have is a rating for it. So
DeAndre Martinez, are your asset management services available to truck owners who don't drive? Yes and no. We have, let's see, we have 4 truck owners, and one of them doesn't drive his own truck. He's just a truck driver. But most of our truck owners do not drive and have never driven. They've never been a truck driver. But our asset management services are very, 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 very limited. Um, I get emails every week. Hey man, I got a truck. I got a truck. I got a truck. I got, because people that own assets, they understand the value of what we do. Trying to get truck drivers to understand the value of what we do is a little more difficult. And without truck drivers, none of it's, I can't, okay. Without truck drivers, it doesn't do me any good to have your truck. I think that back to Havaris, I think he says, why does Landstar suggest step deck over flatbed?
Well,
That's what they
I
offer
don't
you.
know.
Yeah, he said right.
That's
Maybe they got a bunch of step decks sitting around. They want somebody to haul them.
yeah. There's your answer probably. So yeah, I don't know. It's probably they try to get you into this, doing the step deck stuff where you can graduate into the double drops and all that, but you don't have to. A lot of these guys think oh you got to be a double drop guy to be a heavy hauler and all that, and there couldn't be anything further from the truth on that. I mean, look, I, I, I I used to have a guy that drove one of my trucks that pulled a Landstar double drop. And I hate to admit this, especially on camera, but I actually pulled one once or twice. Me and him did a team load. And it's, the thing about it is you can get some really good loads at Landstar with a double drop, but you're also looking at a lot of bottom of the barrel stuff because the problem with it is I don't know about as far as some of these other companies, but it seems like that the market for double drops here at Landstar is saturated and has been for several years now because
Mhm.
the rates just aren't what they should be if you compare them to the price of the equipment and experience that's needed from the driver. You can make a lot more doing, unless you get into the really big stuff where you got a Stinger and a Jeep and all that. Now that's a totally different ball game, but
Mhm.
you know, the just pulling if you just got a 2 axle double drop with 29 feet in a well, you're nothing here as far as being specialized. I mean, that's just you might as well just go buy a flatbed because you're going to have a lot more access to loads if that's what you're looking for. So
Um, uh, somebody said, well, what do you think about Conestoga? We like Conestoga. Conestoga's been very good. Here's what I want you to understand about Landstar, okay? And I'm going to talk about because I have friends. I have people now in the corporate office that I can consider friends, okay? And I'm going to talk about them too. We do not have blue Landstar colored glasses here, all right? There's nowhere else that we would have our fleet because nobody in the industry offers us the ability to do what we do better than Landstar. But when you're talking to people in the corporate office, there's an overwhelming majority of them that don't know shit. Okay. Um, I would not take their advice on just about anything. And I am especially talking about the orientation and cabs coordinators. Okay. Just smile and nod, fill out the paper, take the test, and move on. Okay. So if they're suggesting step deck over flatbed, there's never been a better reason to not do step deck than that right there. They mean well. I think about a bunch of them really do mean well, but they just don't know anything.
well, and the part of it too is like I said, I mean they s- they want you to move on up into double drops and all that stuff too. So that's probably why they claim that it's more versatile. You can haul the tall loads on them or whatever, but Yeah, that may be true, but the reality of it is, like I said, you want to know the truth to it. Run the numbers on it. See how many flatbed loads there are versus step deck loads out of any given location. That's all you need to answer that question. Because I guarantee you come here with just a flatbed, starting out at Landstar, or I'm sorry, if you come here with a step deck just starting out at Landstar versus a guy that comes here with a flatbed, the step deck's going to struggle a lot more than what the flatbed will as far as finding loads. I mean, it's just there's not as many step deck loads. Sure, you can put some flatbed loads on there, and a lot of the loads that we booked on the step deck that we had, a lot of those were actual flatbed loads, you know. So
Ember on TikTok says, I wish I could take your training, but I have no money to do so. Well, our training doesn't cost anything except your time. There's no charge for our program, but we pay a percentage of the rate. Okay. And the rates are down. So we cannot afford to pay what most company driver gigs pay, right? We pay the rate's what the rate is, and the percentage, it is what it is. So if you're so broke that you can't live on 70 to 80,000, which is what you could make if you really hustled. But there are downtimes, you know, if a truck goes down or you take time off, you don't get paid. You at least need to have enough financial stability that you can get through the first 6 or 8 weeks, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. You're not going to make the money in the first 6 to 8 weeks that you would make on week 20, right? Because you're gonna learn the system better, and you're gonna trip plan better, and you're gonna do a lot of things better. So there's no cost to our program other than your time, but you need to be able to get through the first 6 or 8 weeks because it's going to be lean. You know, it is what it is. Jeffrey Kuhn, if you could buy any older truck to put on the road, what would it be and what motor would it have in it? If I could choose any older truck to put on the road, and we're talking about older trucks, it would be a 2005 to 2007 Freightliner Century or Columbia with a 14-liter Detroit, a straight 10 or a 13 with a 358 rear, or like a 10-speed direct with 264s, like an old Schneider truck. Those Schneider trucks are awesome. They're incredible. They're spec'd for fuel
until they
mileage
hit you.
until they hit you in a parking lot. But that was a. Did you see the condescending email from that bitch?
I did. Yes, I
Oh,
did. That was
we got run over in
and
December,
it's
right? It was
literally,
December, wasn't it?
I was thinking January, but you may be right. But yeah, it's
Yeah, maybe it was. We got run over in a
literally,
parking lot, and I've
I
been
mean,
chasing this bitch for 2 weeks.
she's got to be blind is all I got to say.
Well, yeah. How does
So
one get in? Amber, I guess you're talking about the program. How does one get into it? Well, you go to blueribbonlogistics.com. And there on the front page, you will see what is the masterclass. And there's all kinds of information. And then you can join the program. There's a button, and there's a bunch of questions that you need to ask or answer. A bunch of questions you need to answer. And we will look over your submission, and we will extend an invitation to you to have a Zoom interview. But you need to wear steel toe boots and a mouth guard to the interview, because you're probably going to get punched in the mouth and you're going to get your toes stepped on. But that's how you do it. You go to blueribbonlogistics.com, and everything, all the information's there. If you're looking at us on TikTok, you can go to the link in bio, and there's all the links. And this is episode 200. So there's 199 episodes before this one. So I would suggest you just get into binge watching or listening. It's available on every podcast platform in audio form. And we do lots of TikToks, and we do YouTube, and we do this every Friday night at 8:00. So that's how you do it. So back to the older truck. It just comes down to simplicity. Do the 05 to 07 Centuries with the 14-liter Detroit have some quirks? Yes, they do. Would I prefer a 12.7 over a 14-liter? Maybe. 14-liter has variable geometry turbo. It has a better Jake brake. I like Jake brakes. It has more power than a just a 12.7. 12.7s can be cranked up, and you can get horsepower and all that good stuff out of them. They're great engines. But the 99 to 03 have a different HVAC system in them. It's the older style. They're a little harder to handle. The 05 to 07 or 04 technically. The 04 to 07 is the air conditioner is easy to work on. And I know all you candy ass truck drivers like that air conditioner. Okay. I'm one of them, right? Over 70 degrees, I start to melt. Right. So I like the 05 to 07. I don't like the 04s because it was a bridge year. It was the first year for EGR. We have an 04 12 set or 4. Yeah, it's an EGR 12.7. It just don't get fuel mileage. I would rather it be a 14-liter. We put 14-liter injectors in it. There's a good Jack Novak. Love the show. Discovered you guys after signing some sketchy paperwork over at Prime Inc. Currently planning my way out, but I want to get my 1 year of experience. Thank you for all there. Well, appreciate that, Jack. Jack, I can only assume you've got yourself an automatic transmission restriction, because that's the that's the new slavery here in the land of the free. Where these big ass companies hook y'all into only driving for them by putting automatic transmission restrictions on you. We found a place here in Eastern Kentucky that will get rid of that automatic restriction for $1,500 in a couple of days. So I would definitely work on getting that off of you. I'd love to know. I mean, it's so hard to find the origin of a bunch of this stuff, but I would love to know where this automatic transmission restriction came from. I'm sure we're going to find the unholy alliance of corporation and state somewhere in there, where somebody whispered in somebody's ears, "Hey, what you ought to do? You ought to come up with an automatic transmission restriction, because then all the stupid slaves will only be able to work for us. It's a great idea." I figure that's how that went.
That sounds about accurate.
Yeah. So sketchy paperwork. Yeah. Oh, it's sketchy. All right. I did it the old way. I did it in 1999. Leased a truck from Prime. Rocky says he wants a 24 Volvo or Cascadia with a 53-foot Conestoga with wide singles and an auto transmission.
You need a dispatcher?
Yeah.
I accept payment in Blue Moon, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna put that out there.
Damn it boy says, I love the Super 10. I learned on a Super 10. My first truck had a Super 10. The problem with the Super 10s is every one of them, which I haven't seen a Super 10 in a truck newer than about 02, 03 maybe. They always paired them with damn 390 rear ends.
Yeah.
And that's a recipe for disaster when it comes to fuel mileage. But I like, everybody hated the Super 10. Have you ever drove one?
I did. I drove one time and it wasn't a super experience. I hated the damn thing. So
what I liked about I always skip gears anyway. Like I always go from 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 and then start climbing. Well, with the Super 10, it's just one move. First to third to fifth, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I'm probably not giving it a fair chance, to be honest with you, because it was after I had been driving with a trainer when I first started driving. I was with a company, and after I've been driving with a trainer for a while, they sent us out to do a road test. And I'd just been driving a 10-speed, and I get in the truck and it's a Super 10, and I'm like, I don't have a damn clue how to do this crap. And I guess the guy felt sorry for me or something. I don't know, but either way, I passed the damn road test. And but I tell you what, the one thing I did was when I bought my first truck was it was a 13 speed, and I'd never driven one of those before then either.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I tell you dude, that was the best damn decision I ever made in my life, was to get one with 13 speed, because that's 18 speed. Unless you're doing a heavy haul, these guys, you see a lot, especially years ago, you seen a lot of these big guys with these big hoods that they had to put the 18 speed transmissions in these trucks. I just don't see the point of it unless you're doing heavy haul. Why do
Mm-hmm.
you want to shift so damn many gears all the time? It don't make sense to me. But man, that 13 speed, that's nice. You get to go up mountains and everything. So
And that's what always puzzled me when people would say they hated a Super 10, but they love a 13. And I'm like, all the Super 10 is the top side of a 13. It's the
yeah,
exact same thing. I got a question twice. What do brokers mean when they say they need a D rating or above to give loads? Brother, I don't have a clue. Uh, Go find Anik, Small World Anik, or Steve Vest on TikTok. They can answer that. I don't really deal straight with brokers because I'm leased to a carrier. I got a great Super 10 story for you. I got in the industry in late 97. And so my best friend, Don, from high school, he followed me into the industry. So it would have been late 98. He went to a truck driving school out in Oklahoma. It was like at a Votech school. And I moved to US Express so that from Werner, I moved to US Express so that he and I could team together. So he goes to the school, then he goes into a trainer, but the trainer truck was a straight 9 and it was a Victory Express truck. Um, US Express was buying up everybody back then. They bought Victory Express and they bought PST. They were just buying companies all over the place. Well, they bought this Victory right where 675 meets 70 in Ohio.
yeah,
Right there was the terminal for Victory Express. Really, really nice place. So his trainer was a female, and she trained him on a straight 9. So he gets out of training. We meet there at the Victory Terminal, and we did some laundry, and I gave him a crash course in Super 10. I'm like, here's how it works. He was like, okay, man, I got it. No, he didn't. So we start heading east on 70, and I'm laying in the bed, and I've got him up into high gear, and he's doing okay until we hit Valley Grove there in West Virginia. And he flipped the switch, and he went from 10th to 9th. And I'm like, okay, great. We got 9th gear. And the truck started slowing down on that hill, and I heard him go for 8th, and it was ring,
didn't work.
ring, and he's just revving it up. I pull the curtains open, and we're going about 6 miles an hour in the middle lane going up that hill, and there's trucks blowing by on the side. So I put my left leg behind the seat. I put my right foot on the gas pedal, and I just grabbed him around the neck, and I started grabbing gears, and I geared him up, I don't know, to like 7th gear or something, and I just set the cruise. And I said, don't touch it until you get to the top of the hill. That was
Wow.
a hell of an experience.
I don't think I would have had the patience to be a trainer. That just
Yeah, it was well, and that's probably the closest I ever got really to doing it. But we were friends, and that makes it kind of harder, when you're buddies and you have to.
yeah.
Um, I tell you, one time, where that barbecue man at Petro in Little Rock, where
Oh yeah.
you went down past the Petro, and there was a T intersection,
Yep.
and you had to kind of turn a U-turn back into that parking lot. So
Yeah.
I said, well, we're just going through there. And I said, hey, let's stop and get some barbecue. He's like, all right, wake me up when we get there. So I'm getting off the exit at North Little Rock, and I hollered at him. I said, hey, we're here, get up. And I could feel that he was a big dude. He's probably 300, 325. And I could feel the truck where he's up there, you know, and he kept stumbling. I'm like, dude, if this truck's moving, you got to have a hold of something, you know, because
Mhm.
he's just trying to stand up. So I make my way down past the Petro. I get to the T intersection. I turn left and I pull up into the Barbecue Man parking lot. And I guess the exact moment that I hit the brakes was right when he went with both hands to buckle his pants. He come head first through that curtain and landed head first in the passenger floorboard. And that curtain had wrapped around him and the Velcro got hooked. And so he was mummified by that curtain, ripped the whole damn thing down. The only thing I could do, because I couldn't pick his big ass up, you know, he was wrapped up in that curtain. So, and he's leaning up on the passenger door. And I said, well, hang on. So I just walked around and opened the passenger door and here he come, curtain and all, laying in that parking lot. Barbecue
Oh,
Man stuck his head out there. He was, you know, what are you doing over there, man? I'm like, pay no attention to us. We'll be all right. And I had to unwrap his big ass from that.
Look like you're dumping a body off.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, it was a good barbecue though. Mm.
Yep.
Is that guy, are they still there? I ain't been on 40 in about years.
I don't know. I honestly never ate at that barbecue place. I always went to Nick's in Carlisle, Arkansas at the 183. That was always my go-to. So I don't know. I never did. I tried not to hang out too much in West Memphis. I never was fond of that place, but I don't know if that guy's still there or not. I don't hear him on the radio. I don't hear the guy. You remember the guy that used to do the white smoke, the purple smoke, and all that? I don't hear him on there either. I don't know what happened to him. So
I
he must.
stopped. I probably stopped using the CB in probably 2014. So I'm kind of out of the loop on a lot because I remember that
Well,
they had that stupid recording in said Oklahoma City. I got my nightgown on, got my pretty red panties on. I'm ready to go to bed. Remember that
yeah.
one?
Well, the CB is kind of a requirement for what I do sometimes. So
Right.
it
Yeah.
it helps. So
Well, they're talking about this automatic thing, you know, because Rocky's like, well, if I was going to go back on the road, well, first of all, you're not going back on the road. Okay, you make 4 times more doing empty alignments than you do driving trucks. But I was driving Barb's truck when we first got it in the fleet, and I had to move it from TA up to cams,
right.
and I get on the interstate, and it's shifting, and of course those Cascadias they ride good and they're quiet, and I'm going, you know, maybe if I was driving, maybe this automatic thing would be okay. And then the son of a bitch just shut off for no reason. And I went, okay, all right, never mind. Manual it is, you know, and it was this stupid little box on the firewall called a PNDB. So if you've got a Cascadia, just get ready. It happened this week to the other one, and Jonathan fixed it himself. But it's a little distribution box on the damn firewall, and you'll be driving along, and the truck shuts off, and it restarts, and it shuts off, and it restarts. You know,
Mm.
whatever happened to the DVD man? There was one everywhere. There was one point I was at the Jackson, Mississippi, and I got out my computer and I printed up a sign, and it said, I do not need any DVDs. I don't have any money. And if you knock on my door, I will pepper spray you. And I made 2 of them and I taped them to each window.
They might knock on your door.
Nope.
I wonder whatever happened. Oh, you remember all the people trying to sell the fake jewelry? You remember those guys? You ever seen them?
I don't think so. I had a
I mean, you could.
lady at the TA in Jessup
Mm-hmm.
walk. She had a little cart that she pulled behind her and had cleaning supplies. And she walks
Huh.
up and she goes, "Do you need your truck cleaned?" And I went, "No." And she was like, "I'm serious about truck cleaning. See,
Yeah.
she's like, I will clean your truck." I'm like, "Well, I can clean my own truck, thanks." And she's like, well, if you have anybody that knows it, and for an extra $20, I'll do it topless. I'm like, okay, well,
Wow.
that's an entertainment value, you know?
Yeah.
I figure once she gets in there, there's going to be another $20 offer, but that's, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
get
I
some
bet she didn't
Ajax
do
on
a whole
wash
lot of
off.
cleaning.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ishmael Ingram. I have orientation and securement training on Monday at Landstar. Thank you for your insight and helping me decide on whether or not to come aboard. I appreciate it. Do you have any wise words to offer with securement class, Phil?
We should actually interview Barb on this. I've talked to her a couple times, and she said that well, see, Pete's not there. He's not teaching it right now. So
Oh,
there was a couple different guys, and she said she actually learned a few things. So
okay.
but so yeah, maybe there's an improvement on it too. So I don't know.
I missed
But
Ishmael's first comment. I have an 05 Century 14 liter, 900 on the clock. When would you recommend a rebuild? When it's time.
when it tears up,
Oil
yeah,
consumption. You know, about a gallon a week. If you start using about a gallon a week, it's time to start preparing. But if your oil consumption is good, obviously you should have an OPS on there available for purchase at blueribbonlogistics.com. You should have an OPS on that truck. And then do what your oil samples tell you to do.
yep.
Mufay
Going
says
back to the
he cleans his own truck topless. So,
who said that?
Mukfay on
Oh, okay. Wow. This is taking a turn. Let's go back to this question about the orientation and securement training. Yeah, my advice is I don't know if you know anybody here at Landstar or not, but if you don't, you know, find somebody that knows something about flatbed, because I don't know if you apparently if you're going through securement training, you probably don't you either have no experience or not a lot of experience. Everything, you can't learn everything in that class. That's a 2-day course,
no.
and it's impossible for them to teach you everything. There's companies out there that have a lot better training, securement training and tarping, because they don't teach you anything about tarping, by the way. So if you're expecting to go there and learn anything about tarping,
Hmm.
that's not happening. They might show you what a tarp is, but they're not, as far as I know, they don't show you how to use it. But they'll show you the basics of how to use straps and chains. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's pretty simplistic, to be honest with you. It covers, you know, pretty much the basics of everything. But I mean, the thing about it is, once you go through that class, it helps to have somebody to lean on and to show you, you know, how exactly certain loads should be secured, because you could get yourself in a lot of trouble with some of this stuff if you don't know what you're doing. So it's like I said, find you a friend. If there's some old hand in there that's in there because he got that's his punishment because he got a ticket for not following the securement. He's probably not the guy to listen to, because um,
Hmm.
but yeah, find somebody in there that knows what the crap they're doing. So
Clyde on TikTok asked, how's the van side of Landstar in process right now? I'm guessing that means he's in the qualification process. I mean, look, it's it's tough. I mean, the whole market's tough. I'm gonna tell you to have a daily revenue goal and a weekly revenue goal and a monthly revenue goal. I'm going to tell you to base that goal off of the gross number, not after Landstar. Ours is 1450 a day for a weekday load and 2175 for a weekend load. That's $8,000 a week. That would be $32,000 a month, give or take. Um, you need to not get distracted by rate per mile. Because there's a bunch of people, I'm not going to turn my key on for less than $3. Okay. All right, buddy. Good luck to you. But you can find $1,200 to $1,400 a day. And if you'll find $1,200 to $1,400 a day and about $2,500 on the weekend, you will make money. You will make money. You'll make consistent money. Are you going to make what we did in 21 and 22? No, you're not, because the market, the supply and demand right now is out of whack. There's too many trucks. We need more trucks to go away. So you need a daily rate. And if somebody, like I had a guy call me today and he was like, hey, I have a load from here to there. And I'm like, okay, great. What's it pay? And he's like $1,300. And I said, that's a 2-day load, brother. I said, my daily rate's $1,450. And he's like, well, I could maybe get 1,700. I'm like, still don't help. It's a 2-day load. If I'm going to be on a load for 2 days, I got to have $2,500 to $3,000, so
Exactly.
sorry, and he's like, well, okay. You can only drive so many days or so many miles in a day, so load one today and deliver it tomorrow and get, $1,200 to $1,500, and then load one the next day, going to the next day, paying $1,200 to $1,500. And if you can get between 6,900 and 8,000 every single week, and some weeks will be 10,000 and some weeks will be 6,500. But if you can average, that's why I'm telling you daily, weekly, monthly, because when you have a bad day, you need to look and say, well, how's my week? I've had a shitty day. This load sucks, or I had a load cancel. Something happened out of my control. Well, what's my week look like? Well, my week looks good. Even with this bad situation, or I had one today, broke down in the damn dock, had a coolant leak, and I had to send somebody out there. Well, he lost the opportunity to get a load. On Good Friday, that he didn't know what it was. But if your week's going okay, right? But sometimes you're going to have a bad week. Well, what's my month look like? Well, if I've got a $30,000 goal for my month and I have a bad week, but it looks like over the month, I'm still going to hit my 30,000 goal, well, then I'm good. Let the revenue take care of the revenue. And then you need to manage your expenses. You need to get the best fuel mileage you can get. You need to utilize that Landstar One app. You need to buy the cheapest fuel you can buy. That's where all the little detail stuff comes in. But I see a lot of people operating trucks either with their own authority or leased to a carrier, and they're obsessed with rate per mile. That's a recipe for failure. Do not get pigeonholed in revenue per mile. You need to be obsessed instead with cost per mile, because that's something you can actually do something about. Be obsessed with cost per mile. Don't be obsessed with rate per mile. Get enough rate per day or per week or per month to cover what you need to cover and go out. And an empty truck is not making any money. So if you're sitting around waiting on some magical rate per mile to come along, you're not making any money. So don't sit around on your ass waiting for some magic freight to come along. Just get out there and get the damn trailer loaded and get on down the road and get you another one. Kenny B and Mary Annie Oakley. Wow. Is there much team freight in flatbed, or is it mostly designed for solo drivers? If you're talking about Landstar, I'm going to answer this probably differently than you're thinking. There is not a great deal of team freight. Now, when I think team freight, I think 50-mile-an-hour transit time, pick up in New Jersey today and deliver in California 3 days from now. There's not a lot of that here. There's some here. There's not a lot of that here. But what we call that is super solo, where you're not limited by a logbook. There's a lot of drop and hook freight that's not team freight, but you could run it as a team. There's a lot of, like, back to our daily revenue. Okay. Well, right now in this market, there's a bunch of $1,700 to $2,000 loads that a solo could not do, pick up today and deliver tomorrow, but a team could. So you could probably find some 700 to 800 mile stuff that's paying, in that 18 to $2,000, and do that in a day, because you might call and the load is picking up. It's posted picking up Monday, delivering Wednesday, but you might call and say, "Hey, we're a team. Could I deliver that Tuesday?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's first come first serve. They'll take you when you get there." Okay, we'll hook onto it and take off. And again, you need that same daily rate. For a team, I would want to be between 10 and 15,000 a week, which is going to equate to $7,000 to $8,000 to the truck. And I'm just talking about general freight here. I'm not talking about the AA&E and all the fancy crazy stuff, government freight. I'm just talking about general freight, 10 to 15 grand a week as a team, especially if you're all in, your money's going to one household. You should be able to make a lot of money, you know. Um, but you don't come to Landstar looking for team freight. Come looking for freight, and find something that you can pick up today and haul ass overnight, and get it delivered, even if it's not a team load. You got anything to add to that?
Well, the one thing that they should know is there's not any drop and hook stuff in the flatbed here at Landstar. It's all live load and live unload. So, and the other thing I would say that would probably help is if you did have a truck that you could go coast to coast with,
Mm-hmm.
and get those longer runs, because that's, that your rate per mile might not be as much, but if you're running team, you keep that truck rolling, get those miles, and I think that's where you're going to make a lot of money. And you know, if you do get into A&E stuff, obviously that's a whole totally different game on that also. But yeah,
Is it hard to get on with y'all with a Conestoga? Well, there's two different questions there. We don't take on equipment. We have a training program. Uh, it's an 18-month program, for company to be a company driver, and us teach you business. Now we have a Conestoga. Um, Now, if you have a Conestoga and a truck and you want to lease on the Landstar, we have a mentoring program. You can go to our website and read about BCO mentoring. What's the oldest truck Landstar would take? Um, as long as it has an electronic engine. So that'll take you back to about 93, 94. It has to have an electronic engine so it can connect to an ELD. So if you got an old B model cat in an 87 Peterbilt with a twin stick, not happening. But if it has an electronic engine with a 7 or 9 pin connector and it'll pass a DOT inspection, Landstar will let you lease it on. Let's see. Company.
you done the you done the Pittsburgh Power shout out yet?
I have not. Let's take care of that. Oh, let me fix this. I'm gonna do some production work here real quick because Phil looks kind of crazy. Well, we are brought to you by Pittsburgh Power. They've been friends of ours since 2009. We are stocking distributors of the OPS and max mileage fuel-borne catalyst. We use the catalyst in everything 2008 and up. Now, Dr. Jane would have me tell you that you can use it in your pre-emission trucks because it does help with lubricity. Because the older trucks were designed to run with higher sulfur diesel, not this garbage that we have to buy now. Thank you, government. Um, So max mileage does work in pre-emission trucks. We use it primarily to help keep the emission system clean. That's what we do. Now, I guess I'm going to give somewhat of an update for those of you that saw my TikTok from the truck show about the ignorant SOB that was very, very mean and nasty to Dr. Jane. I am not going to mention the name because there are people handling business right now. And so I'm not going to get involved in that. But what I'm going to tell you is report what I saw. And where this started was Dr. Jane was like, "Hey, have you heard of this place?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Will you look them up?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I looked them up. I'm like, "They're over there." And she's like, "Well, I'd like to go talk to them because, we're hearing they're saying that the catalyst will harm your engine and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Well, that's nonsense." And I said, "Well," and I pulled up an oil sample. I'm like, "Well, hey, here's an oil sample." I'm like, maybe they're just ignorant. Maybe they don't know. But she was scared to go over by herself. And I said, "Okay, well, I'll go over with you." And he was horribly rude. Horribly rude. Told her to fuck off twice. And so that's what I can testify that I saw. Here's the bottom line. All right. And the whole reason I'm telling you a story. If you are talking to someone that wants to sell you something and all they can do is trash talk their competitor, come with the data. Come with the data. Show me that your product is better. But the minute you start trash talking your competition, I want nothing to do with you. And so,
Right.
I'm told that the organizers have been made aware of this fool's behavior, and I'm gonna let them deal with him. So, and I hope he finds out. But we are, Pittsburgh Power are our friends, and we were customers of theirs long before um, they sponsored the podcast, and we're thankful that they do that. So call up there and talk to Bill or um, or Leroy or JR. All the guys are there ready to help you. Kevin said something about Bruce, and this is absolute truth. Bruce Mallinson, the owner. You leave a voicemail for Bruce, he will call you back. Now it might be a day or two because he might be in Colorado riding snowmobiles. But I had some kind it was with your truck, 672. We're having some
Yeah.
weird stuff going on with that truck. And so I thought, I gotta call. I gotta get the red phone, And I called and I left a message for Bruce and he called me back. "Hey, Chris, this is Bruce, Pittsburgh Power, and I love how he talks. So we talked over the problem, and like 3 or 4 days later, my phone rings and there it says Bruce Mountain. I'm like, "Why is Bruce calling me?" "Hey, just wanted to check in and see how that truck was doing." I'm like, Bruce Mallinson at this stage in his life does not need to call me back. He
Yeah.
certainly doesn't need to follow up 4 or 5 days later, right? Uh, so that's character, right? So when you compare Pittsburgh Power, how they treat their customers, the products that they offer to the market, with some jackass that all he can do is make stuff up and then scream at a woman at a truck show and scream expletives at her. That to me tells you all you need to know. So if you guys happen to bump into this company, you'll know who they are. It won't take long to figure them out. So, um, that is what it is.
Yeah.
What grade oil do you use on your 18 Cascadia? We use, which I was actually doing this wrong. It's 10W30 full synthetic. That's what I got from the Detroit shop. So we use Mobile Extreme something. There's something else on there, but it's a full synthetic 10W30. We don't have OPSs on these two trucks yet. Just Haven't got around to it. Been kind of busy. But the DD15 kind of has bypass filtration. It's not as good as OPS, but it has some bypass filtration built into it. Because the factory interval is 50,000. What is it on your ISX?
I have no idea what they would recommend. I know it don't get to 50,000 on mine though.
Do you don't
So,
have an OPS, do you?
oh, I've got one and sitting in my garage, but it's not on the truck.
Well, you
So
need to
I
come
can't.
up. You need to bring that
I
thing
need
to
to
West
send some
Virginia.
pictures.
I
I
got a
send some
drill.
pictures of it, and you tell me where to mount it at. You
Listen,
should
I'm
see.
gonna strap it to the passenger seat and just run it. I'll just drill a hole in the floor, run it down into the oil pan.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea.
I will find a place for it.
So, but yeah, I've been meaning to put one on here. It hasn't happened yet.
So Ishmael says, have a year worth of flatbed, recommended by the recruiter to take the securement course. Well, Ishmael, we've got, like I said, go to the website, look at BCO mentoring. You know, we can give you some pointers and stuff. Will help you get started. What would Randy Wheeler? What would somebody need to do if they leased on with Landstar but had a couple of customers themselves? They could get loads directly from the customer. Well, you would have to partner with an agency. You know, and there's lots of good agencies. There's one right here about 10 miles or so from my house. But the agent would have to connect with that customer. Because BCOs don't have, you know, we don't have the ability to make contracts and book loads. But you could. Is a second fuel filter required, in all caps, required on a Detroit 60? Oh, second fuel filter. I don't think that it's required. Like some of them have 2 spin-on filters. All of ours, most of ours, I think except one, has a Davco. Now I'm looking at the new FAST system because used to be installing a FAST was a kind of ordeal because you had to run secondary fuel returns and drill the tank. But now they've changed their system around where you can unbolt the Davco, bolt the FAST on, and all you have to do is put a T in your factory return line. So I'm thinking about maybe going forward with putting a FAST system on. So and Rocky, public service announcement. 50,000 mile oil services does not mean 50,000 mile grease jobs unless you have a lot of money to replace greasable components. We grease ours every 12,000 miles. Probably ought to be done a little more than that, but it would be fine doing it every 12,500 miles if they would actually grease the damn thing. But I'm finding that the $35 grease job at TA is not worth 35 cents because I got 4 or 5 trucks in a row in the shop and realized they're dry. I mean, they're not greasing anything. I even had one where the caps on the tops of the kingpins were completely loose, but it was covered in grease. You know, and not one time did they ever be like, "Hey, man, your caps are loose." So I got to do a set of kingpins week before last on a truck that had just had kingpins done a year before. So, Havaris, so y'all recommend being mentored rather than if you have experience in flatbed. I recommend being mentored in anything. if you're going to be a mechanic, find a good mechanic to mentor you. If you're going to be a machinist, find a machinist to mentor you. If you're going to open a restaurant, find another restaurateur to mentor you. If you're going to mow grass, find somebody to mentor you. I mean, especially if you're new to business, if you've got a lot of business experience, don't nobody need to mentor Larry Long in business, right? But if Larry was going to go into some other thing, he would need a mentor. His mentor was Kevin Rutherford. So do you need a mentor? Absolutely. You 100% need a mentor. But that's across the board, Well, sir, we've crossed the 2-hour mark. I've got to get up in the morning and go work on some more trucks. So I think we're going to shut her down.
All
So
right.
hopefully if the internet people will get their shit together, we might have Larry Long back with us next week. I'm going to have to get him signed up with Elon, I guess, and get some of that Starlink internet or something. But we will be back with you next Friday. That'll be April 5th. Dude, it's already April. What the hell?
Yeah.
How is Monday, April 1st?
End of the first quarter. And by the way, anybody sitting around looking for a load on a weekend, there's still people looking to get freight off a dock right now. Just FYI.
Yeah.
So don't give up if you're Landstar driver and you're sitting there banging your head against the steering wheel like Evan was earlier.
Yep. Keep them load alerts on.
Yep. It'll
because
happen.
they'll pop up out of nowhere. Somebody's going to break down. Something's going to happen. And if you are not available, you ain't going to get it. I mean, Larry told this story years ago. We had a guy on a dedicated kind of deal. And it was like 11 o'clock Friday night, that dedicated canceled for whatever reason. He jumped on the board. He saw a load, called on it, booked a load at 11:30 Friday night.
I booked loads at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning before. I used to intentionally, when I first started with Landstar, I was pulling a van. I would intentionally leave my house with a load out of Goodyear, out of Gaston, Alabama, and go to the Detroit area. And like if I picked it up on a Monday, I would deliver it on Wednesday morning. And I would intentionally sit there all day long and wait and wait and wait and wait. And when about 4 or 5 o'clock, when all those expedited automotive loads started popping up on the load board, that's when you made your money. So
at 4 o'clock hustle.
Yep.
That's a real thing.
That's it.
All right, y'all. We will see y'all next Friday.